Hi, my name is Julie Underwood. I'm your Mercer Island City Manager. I'm really excited to spend some time with you and our directors who will be outlining all the different cost cutting and efficiency measures that they've had to really embark on since 2001. In fact, in 2001, Initiative 747 put a 1% cap on the revenues that cities, counties, and special districts can collect. So since then, the city has had to really find ways to tighten its belt. So I'm excited to share those different measures with you, and so please stay tuned and keep watching. Thanks. Hi, I'm here today with Police Chief Ed Holmes, and he's going to talk about some of the efficiency and cost-cutting measures that you've had to undertake since really probably the early 2000s. And even though public safety is our #1 priority, your department still has had to really find efficiencies. So let's describe those.
Okay, sure. So my hope is that I'm able to convey the fact that when and where we've been able to make cuts or reductions or find efficiencies without harming the public safety or the safety of the island, we've been doing that. And we've been doing that since before I was chief. And I was appointed chief in 2006, but if I rewind even before that, I know we cut our financial investigator position when that position no longer funded itself as it had originally been designed to do so. We got out of the business of having our own dispatch center and contract with a regional group now in an effort to realize the economies of scale. And we also joined the coalition of small police agencies. There's 11 police agencies and we share resources, so we don't all have to pay for or have the same resource. We in fact can share amongst ourselves, so we do that. And then if I think about in 2006 when I was appointed chief, one of the first things I did is I cut my administrative position, or administrative assistant position. So I didn't feel like I had the need for that position, so we cut that position. The next year we reduced our record staffing. At the time we didn't need 2 FTEs in there, and we had 2, so I reduced it down to 1.5. We also have a contract with the City of Bellevue. For example, we give them marine patrol services at no charge, and in exchange for that they give us a number of services that we would otherwise have to pay for. And so that works out.
So for example, like K9 or?
K9 firing range, special investigations, okay. SWAT team.
That's great.
They also send their fire units here more often than we send ours there, so it recognizes that imbalance there. It recognizes that in the interlocal agreement we have. We also moved to 12-hour shifts.
Okay.
The patrol officers did in an effort to reduce the overtime and give more coverage on the road. We cut our ENTF position, that's the East Side Narcotics Task Force detective. About 18 months ago we cut that position. Again, I believe we could do that without harming the safety of the island. And we also have contracts so that we don't have to provide our own jails or our own animal control or our own firing range. So when and where we can contract for things like that, we do that, and when and where we can reduce our expenses by being more efficient, we do that. This is something we've done not because we've been asked to do. It's nothing new. This is something we've been doing for the last more than a decade,
right.
Even since before I was the chief here. So I hope people understand that this is something that's just part of how we do business here.
I'm here now with our chief of the fire department, Steve Heitman, and so one of the things I'd like you to explain to the community, what types of things have you done to tighten your belt, find efficiencies, and really manage and control costs?
One of the main things that I do is I get a monthly budget report to see where we are. And one of the biggest drivers of our budget is overtime.
Okay.
And recently we have had an influx of younger firefighters that are starting families. And so we evaluate that. That is an unfunded budget item, but by law we give that leave. And so I always evaluate the budget on things that we can shut down. And typically throughout the year I'm watching that. Last year I had to shut the budget down in June. And for items that weren't necessary other than continuity of operations, which means if it's something that is essential, we have to have that, such as EMS supplies, then we purchase those items.
Okay.
But if it's new duty uniforms or it's outside training or anything along those lines that aren't necessary unless it is an absolute, then we don't purchase those items. We hold off those purchases
Okay.
until the next budget cycle.
Oh, wow, so you had to stop that mid-year. You're having to really closely track your dollars spent.
Yes, because
Okay.
I recognize last year we had 4 newborn babies and 1 adoption.
Wow.
And on top of that, we had 2 disabilities that lasted 11 months. And so I recognized early on
Mm-hmm.
that we were going to have a budget challenge.
Yeah, so maybe might be helpful to explain that by law, we have to provide,
By law, everyone
Full
is entitled
family
to 12
medical.
weeks off. And
Yep.
as long as they have a banked benefit, they're allowed to use that
Yeah.
benefit. And so it is unfunded on our
Mhm.
end. And so last year, I think out of the potential for 60 weeks of use,
Mhm.
we had 50 weeks
Mhm.
used.
And we have minimum staffing levels,
That's
right?
correct.
Okay.
We are at minimum staffing, which requires 2 3-person engine companies and 1 battalion chief. So anytime there is a absence due to training or
Mhm.
illness or anything like that, then we have to backfill that with overtime.
Okay, all right, so overtime can be something you're really tracking.
Yes.
Chief Heitman, you have very expensive equipment. How do you handle those types of costs?
We try and maintain our equipment for as long as we can, and one of the most expensive pieces we have is the fire engines.
Mm-hmm.
And those were on a 15-year life cycle, which means we keep them for a total of 15 years. They start off at Station 91, which is our busiest station, and then after 5 years, when we purchased a new apparatus, that engine then moved to Station 92 for 5 years, and then after that, it became our first out backup apparatus.
Mm-hmm.
In order to help save some funds, we actually have extended that out to a 6-year period for each area. So now we keep them for 18 years.
Oh, okay.
When we were looking at doing this, the majority of fire departments keep theirs on average about 12 years.
Oh.
There were a few others doing 15, but again, because of our call volume, we felt safe in doing that, and we have excellent maintenance through the City of Redmond.
Okay.
And so we felt comfortable with doing that with our apparatus.
Great, so that stretches those dollars too.
Yes, it does.
That's great. I'm here today with Diane Mortensen. She is our recreation superintendent. You've been with the city a long time.
I have.
Yeah, how long?
21 years.
21
Yeah.
years. Well, I'm excited to be talking to you about some of the things your department has done over the years to tighten its belt. So can you share with us some examples?
Sure. Well, we know as a Parks Department that we land a little lower on the totem pole under the government priorities of government, and
Well, not for Mercer Island, though.
we know how important the Parks Department is to Mercer Island, and so we're really cognizant about how we spend our money,
Great.
how we budget.
Mm-hmm.
We always look for efficiencies along the road.
Mm-hmm. Well, I understand we have almost 475, right? Yeah, 475 acres.
Mhm. That's right.
So that's a lot of grass to mow. That's a lot of grass to water. I mean, what are some things we've done there? I mean, weeds. I mean, how do you manage
Right.
keeping those costs down?
Yeah, I think where we run into a lot of spending is through watering. And so
Okay.
there will be times through very, very severe hot weather where we might brown out some of our large
Okay.
parks.
Okay.
We've also installed smart irrigation clocks so that
Mhm.
it's weather dependent and it will work with the weather and when
Oh,
it needs
great.
to be watered.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some measures we can take there in the outdoor facilities.
Okay, great. And then what about some of the things you've done? I mean, we're so fortunate to have a community center that's so well maintained and so, I mean, every time I go there, it's always busy. I mean, what are some
Yeah.
things, I mean, because that's a lot of staff
It is.
that's needed to staff that facility, but have you done things there to try to curb costs?
Yeah, you know, when we opened the building in 2006, I think
Mhm.
we opened it with a pretty skeleton crew, and it
Mhm.
took us a couple of years to realize what we needed to staff it and to provide the service to the community.
Mhm.
So we've increased staffing over a lot of years that in order to have a quality facility, but we also were able to kind of take a look at the internal staff and shift people to cover certain responsibilities in order not to overstaff.
Okay.
We also have reduced our hours by about 3.5 a week since we opened. We
Okay.
used to open at 6:30 a.m. We
Oh.
open now at 7. We close a little bit earlier in the evening. We just recognized we didn't need to be open all the time.
Okay. And that help obviously reduce costs.
It does.
And still serve the community.
Sure.
Great.
Yeah, we've also implemented a number of sustainable practices.
Oh,
and
like
a
what?
lot of our indoor and outdoor lighting is LED.
Oh, great.
So that helps a lot. We've got
Okay.
our solar panel, as
All
you know,
right.
outside.
Right, so that helps reduce the energy costs.
It does. Some other examples that we've seen over the past years are reducing printing and postage for our recreation brochure. So over the last few years, we have gone digital and
Okay.
sustainable, and we don't mail out to every household on the island.
And that hasn't impacted your revenues?
I don't think it has. I think people are in the digital world now. What we do is we do mail it to current recreation activity participants, so not everybody, but
I
those
was really
that are
glad to
active.
get mine.
Good. Well, hopefully your kids have
And
registered.
I registered.
Nice, yeah. So I think that's worked well. We've also brought the design of the guide in-house
Okay.
and also only put out 2 brochures a year versus 4 a year.
Oh,
So
that's
I think that's
great.
helped a lot for some cost savings.
Okay, any other things that you have done?
Well, when we were going through a bit of a budget crunch a few years ago, we would assess our special events, and we did reduce some of them. Reduced music in the park from 2 days a week to 1 day a week.
Okay.
We cut the outdoor films for a couple of summers. Luckily, we've been able to bring those back. So there's some special events that we've shifted around.
Great. I'm here now with Cindy Goodwin, our Youth and Family Services Director, and she's going to talk to us about some of the things you've done for cost containment as well as cost recovery.
Good. Yeah, I think like a lot of departments and a lot of businesses, we do everything we can to be as efficient as we can and to cut costs and think about what we did last year. Can we do better about that? So there are a few things that we did that allowed us to maintain services and fund them through the YFS department. So I'd say the most important one is that we spent down the savings of the thrift shop. Over a period of about 5 to 10 years, the thrift shop had built up a savings account of about $680,000.
Oh,
And so when the city was having financial difficulties, that allowed the city to take back some of its subsidy to YFS
I get
and to
it.
use our savings.
okay.
Okay, so I'd say that's probably the most substantial. There are a couple of other things that really allowed us to keep business and maintain costs. And one was we didn't have the money to hire mental health therapists, but demand actually was going up for mental health services for children and families on the island.
Okay.
So we began an internship program at the master's level with 3 local universities,
Oh.
UW, Seattle U, and Seattle Pacific University.
Oh, great.
And this allowed us to do an internship program at Community-Based Services in Luther Burbank. And we were able to meet our demand. We hovered with a wait list, but we were
Okay.
pretty much able to meet services that way.
Great.
And then there were 2 things that we did with the voice program that allowed that.
And what is voice?
There are 2 things that we did with the voice program, which is volunteer outreach in communities everywhere. And that's the community service program, developing youth strengths.
Okay.
The first thing was that we offered parents the choice of paying the regular rate, or would they like to pay the full cost of service?
Okay.
And a lot of camps do this throughout the Puget Sound area. And 50% of our parents, about half of our parents said they'd pay the full cost.
Okay.
Yeah, and it allowed us to raise $30,000 a year.
Great.
So that really
Or else
helped
you
us
would have had to cut that program? I mean, how did?
probably reduce services
Okay.
and cut that down. We served several hundred
Okay.
youth, teenagers a summer, so that's really an effective and in-demand
I'm
program.
hoping to get my boys signed
Oh,
up.
good, okay, sign up in March.
Okay.
And then the second thing we did with Voice was we switched our sign-up for projects to an automatic shift board.
Oh.
Yeah. And that really allowed us to reduce staffing by a quarter-time person.
Wow.
Which is a lot of money in the summer. Really helped us do that. So those are probably the 3 things that really kind of set the tone for how we did business differently for several years.
Great. Okay, I know since the recession, Public Works has had to do some things to really reduce your costs. Can you describe what are some of the things you've done?
Sure. Since 2009, the right-of-way team has cut 2.5 FTEs from our organization. So in Public Works, the majority of Public Works is funded through enterprise funds, but the right-of-way team is the one that's focused on the general fund.
And enterprise funds are what?
Water, sewer,
Okay.
stormwater, utilities.
So utilities, got it.
Correct. So
All right.
in the right-of-way team, we've had 2.5 FTEs reduced since
Okay.
2009.
And that's like 2.5 out of how many? I mean,
Out of a total of 9.
9.
And so we've reduced 2.5, and then we've brought back, this last year, we brought back a half-time arborist to help with our right-of-way tree program.
So what does the right-of-way team do?
So the right-of-way team is responsible for all of our roadway maintenance.
Okay.
So from filling potholes
Okay.
to maintaining vegetation along the right-of-ways, to dealing with trees, street signs,
Okay.
traffic signals.
Okay, kind of
Things like-
everything, in the curb, outside of the curb, that's the right-of-way.
Correct, all
Got it.
encompassing. I will
Okay.
say it's important to note that our right-of-way team, we are a small organization,
Mhm.
and a lot of our team crosses over to do other disciplines. So our right-of-way team also supports our stormwater
Oh.
utility as well. So when they're working in the stormwater, they are performing stormwater duties, and they're
Okay.
paid for out of the stormwater utility, but that work does cross between the two teams.
I get it, all right, okay. And then what about other measures you've had to take on?
So other measures we've done is we've contracted out some of the services we used to do in-house.
Okay,
For example, asphalt repairs, we brought that work in-house, or we've contracted that service out now instead of doing it in-house.
okay,
Since we've lost 2.5 FTEs, we've had to prioritize our work, and so that's just one area that we've been able to use contracted services instead of using in-house resources.
so does that mean you're kind of waiting for a bunch of work orders to pile up and then bring in the contractor,
It-
not doing it as you go? How do you?
It does. So typically on a small repair, they'll do a temporary asphalt repair, but
Sure.
a permanent, larger repair
Okay,
is we wait till batches build up, and then we have a contractor come in and do,
and that saves.
it saves money.
Okay, what else?
In addition, we also went through an audit in 2015 that finished in 2016 of the department. And one of the key recommendations that came out of it was to implement a new asset management system. So we have selected a vendor. We've been slowly transitioning over, and we're set to go live in March of this year, of 2018. And although we haven't seen the direct cost savings yet, it is going to be an asset management system where we make data-driven decisions in the field, where we will see efficiencies and improvement in our performance in the long run. So although we haven't seen it yet, it is coming.
So you're implementing some tech solutions. I know I talked to one of your right-of-way team members, and I was like, how do you're telling me your demands have increased, but I'm not sure how have you kept up. And one of the things he said was tech solutions, like having a mobile computer, so he's not having to stop, go into the office. He's doing everything on site. I mean, so those are some of the things you've done to kind of really, obviously, be more efficient, make better decisions, and hopefully eventually save money. I'm assuming that's the whole point.
Yep, absolutely. So he has a computer in his truck, and
Yeah.
he's literally a mobile office in his truck as he goes. So
Yeah.
it limits his time to and from the shop, and allows him to get service requests out in the field and prioritize based off location, urgency, and get to things quicker and more responsive to our community.
Great. Thank you for listening to all of our stories. We will continue to find cost savings, budgetary savings, efficiencies, all of those things to reduce our costs and to continue to provide great services to you, our community. If you'd like to learn more about the city's financial challenges, please visit our website at mercergov.org.